Hello.
It looks like Brian is an attendee, not a panelist.
Really? Let's change that.
I mean, assuming it's the same Brian McDonald.
And he said if you could promote him, that would be good.
Promotion.
Jumped off my,
Does it get a raise with that?
Doubles his salary.
Yeah.
To our salary, so now he can.
Welcome, Brian.
With us.
Congratulations, Brian.
All right. It looks like we have a quorum here. Should I get started?
ready?
Ready? Okay, welcome. Welcome to this public meeting of the Princeton Board of Education. The board is an elected, unpaid group of 10 citizens who set policy and make decisions on educational, financial, and personnel matters for the Princeton Public Schools on behalf of all residents. We're always pleased when members of the community attend our meetings. The board and the school district operate under applicable New Jersey laws and under regulations of the New Jersey State Board of Education. Each meeting includes an opportunity for those attending to comment on the items on the published agenda or other matters of interest to them. The board reserves the right to limit the time allotted to public participation. Law limits discussion of individual personnel and confidential matters. We desire that our meetings provide useful opportunities for communication between the board and the community. Thank you for attending.
As required under the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 1046 et sequentia, adequate notice was given for calling this meeting. It was authorized by the Board of Education and forwarded to the municipal clerk, Princeton Packet, and the Times on January 6, 2021. It was also distributed to the schools and others on the standard distribution list. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. Board Policy 2230, recording devices, requires that we inform those attending this virtual Zoom meeting that the proceedings are being recorded. This meeting is not being live streamed. Public members who wish to make a comment at the appropriate time, as noted in the agenda or added by the presiding officer, shall raise their hand virtually at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Once called upon, the member of the public will be requested to unmute themselves by clicking the mute button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. The representative of the sending district is authorized to vote on such matters that affect sending district students or affect the governance of the Princeton Public Schools, as more specifically designated in NJSA 18A 38(8.1). In the event this statute is amended, the law shall take precedence over this bylaw. Sending district votes pertaining to personnel actions refer to high school, central administrative, district-wide staff, and district-wide staff only. Votes otherwise are considered abstentions.
Thank you, Mr. Bolden. Would you like to call the roll?
Yes. Beth Barron,
Here.
Debbie Bronfeld,
Here.
Dan Dart,
Here.
Betsy Baglio,
Here.
Brian McDonald,
Present.
Michelle Tuck Ponder,
Present.
Peter Katz,
Here.
Daphne Kendall,
Here.
Susan Cantor,
Here.
Jean Durbin.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Bolden. The first item on our agenda is the adoption of minutes of October 12th, 2021. Could I have a motion, please? Betsy Baglio, second. Brian, we have a vote, please. If there's no discussion? Then
Beth Parent,
yes.
Debbie Bronfeld,
Yes.
Dan Dart,
Yes.
Betsy Baglio,
Yes.
Brian McDonald,
Yes.
Michelle Tuck Ponder,
Yes.
Peter Katz,
Yes.
Daphne Kendall,
Yes.
Susan Cantor,
Yes.
Jean Durbin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Motion passed unanimously. The next item is our student board members report. Edward Erickson and Chris Shen, we'd love to hear from you. You're up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. A lot has happened in the past few weeks. School has been going well, and we're truly seeing the transition back to normalcy that Ned and I had talked about back in June during our first meeting with all of you. From excitement over Spirit Week in the last few weeks to massive attendance at the homecoming game, we're definitely seeing a culture shift at PHS from one of just passiveness to one of pride in going to PHS and being part of the Princeton Public Schools District. And it's also one that we definitely owe to the diligence and enthusiasm from our administrators, especially Mr. Schmiel, as well as all of our teachers. So we'd like to thank them for that. In addition to the last time Ned and I were here, I talked about COVID-19 transparency and protocols and how students weren't even being notified when their fellow classmates and students tested positive. We're thrilled to report that this has now changed. Now, when a new COVID case is discovered, students are given the same priority and transparency and also receive notifications as well. We'd like to thank the PHS administration for working with us on this issue diligently. Even from this small change, it's a step in making sure that we're keeping every student and every teacher and every member of the entire PPS community safe and feeling seen. As student representatives, Ned and I have also heard from a number of students and faculty who have asked about requiring vaccines for all students. While we recognize the complexity of the issue, we have all seen firsthand that COVID isn't going anywhere. And the best weapon by far that we have against COVID is the vaccine. And we strongly urge the board to consider vaccines as a strategy to keep our students, teachers, and staff safe. Tonight, we also wanted to focus on a larger goal that Ned and I have for the school year, and which Ned will elaborate on. And that's addressing the inequality and inequity in PHS and the PPS school district at large. PHS has gained a reputation for its academic excellence, but as students, we often see this reputation eclipsed by the worrying opportunity gap in the school. It often feels like there are two PHSs. Talking with Ned, when we think back on the AP classes that we've taken during our high school years, we struggle to remember more than a handful of Black or Latino classmates. And when we talk to our peers, they say the same thing. The same goes for advanced and accelerated classes as well, where there's very little racial diversity, and many of our students are made to feel as they don't even belong in this culture of excellence.
Especially worrying is the district's ESL population, especially our Central American students. I've been in multiple classes with these ESL students where they couldn't speak English and the teachers and other students couldn't speak Spanish. These ESL students are left to fend for themselves and have no way to learn the material. It's important to realize that these students are also repeatedly shown a message that their education doesn't matter as much as the educations of their classmates. Compounding years of these wasted classes, many of our ESL students leave the high school with very little useful education. Regardless of their curiosity and drive, it's an uphill battle for them to receive the quality of education our native English-speaking students get, and our district is failing them in its most basic capacity. In the high school, it's a big advantage to have parents who speak English and have the time and experience to advocate for your needs. Whether it's appealing the math class placements or meeting with your guidance counselor, I'm very lucky to have parents with this experience in the school district, but I can't imagine how difficult it would be for students who have parents who can't speak English or who don't have experience in this school system. In a district with such a focus on excellence, it should be unacceptable to shut so many students out of success. A school that doesn't serve all of its students is broken, and we all owe a responsibility to the members of our learning community. We appreciate the board's commitment to equity and commend the initiative Dr. Kelly has taken this year, and we hope that we can provide useful insight into the issue from a student's perspective. Lastly, we wanted to thank our teachers, staff, and administrators for for all the hard work they've put into giving us students such an outstanding year so far. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Did any board members have any questions? Daphna?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Chris and Ned. Appreciate that. So if you had, and I really appreciate your concern and focus on the ELL kids and our Black students. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you change to make things better?
That's a tough one. I think that it really starts at a young age, not just in the high school. It's a product of like it's a product of a number of years of being placed in ESL classes or in these not so challenging classes. And I think that we need to be careful that we're not placing a lot of our young students in these tracks that they're not going to succeed. And we need to make sure that if they are on these separate tracks, we need to have as many opportunities as possible for them to get back on the normal track with all the other students. And I think that at least with the ELL students, it will be important, I think, to just have more class time teaching them English, because the class time that they are getting right now isn't enough. A lot of them just don't have the English skills to fit into their other academic classes.
I would definitely echo what Ned mentioned. In addition, I would say simply supporting all students and affording all students the same access to opportunities. I know this is especially prevalent in extracurriculars as well. Ned and I are both part of extracurriculars that oftentimes require a lot of investment for students who go on trips or for students to receive the same access to opportunities. So sometimes even a debate trip itself will cost $400. And for a working class family, that's simply out of budget, and that's not something that they can go on. I think definitely providing support to clubs and especially teams that allow these students to apply what they learn in the classroom to larger issues and find passions that they're genuinely interested in is really important. So simply just giving all students the same access to opportunities, whether it's in the classroom or out of the classroom as well.
Thank you.
Debbie?
I really appreciate your responses, and I apologize for putting you on the spot, but you clearly have, spent a lot of time thinking about this. So thank you.
Debbie?
Yeah, I want to echo, what Daphne said. This is something that, is very dear to my heart. And I hope you'll work with us, during your tenure on the board. And I really am excited that you're bringing this up, because for us to hear it from students too, we know that it's something we need to work on and that we need to make better. And I agree completely with like the debate club and the cost. We talk a lot about the cost to entry. The cost to enter any of these organizations and these clubs. And, even with music, like you got to start in, 6th grade. So please come to us with more. And I hope we can add a lot more of this to student achievement, and so that we can really start digging a lot more. So thank you.
Michelle?
I also want to thank Chris and Ned for your comments. And as you probably know, we talk about this a lot. In fact, this is a body that's talked about this a lot for decades. My question for you is, how widespread do you think what you expressed, your ideas and feelings about this, are within the student body? How much do you hear about this from your classmates?
I think it's deceptively widespread. It's easy to ignore the problem, but I think that there's a very large percentage of the PHS student body that doesn't get the resources they need. Yeah, and then even when you look at students who maybe aren't in such dire help, there are a lot of students too who maybe don't prioritize academics as much. That's not what they value. And I think that they often get left behind too, whether it is the school focusing too much on the AP classes and not enough on other forms of like enrichment, such like other forms of career preparedness. I think there are a lot of those students, but there are a surprising amount of students who really just can't speak English and are placed in classes where they have zero chance of understanding what's being taught.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Ned. We really appreciate having you here and hearing your voice at our meetings. It's really important to have you part of us here. I think that takes us then to, I'll just have some brief comments. Michelle, do you have anything else, or is your hand just stuck there? You're okay. All right, good. Just want to make sure you're okay. I just want to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. Thank you all for coming. You know, things continue to be quite busy, and everyone is working very, very hard. And we are going to hear tonight from Superintendent Kelly about some of the more the vital signs and metrics that she's thinking of in terms of measuring progress against some of the commitments that she set forth. And we are grateful to her and her team for continuing to move forward to find ways to actually accomplish improvements for our children and the students in their daily, Dan, you're on twice. A little bit of feedback. Thanks, Dan. But we appreciate the work that you continue to do despite the challenges of COVID, and we also appreciate the fact that everyone is staying flexible and is continuing to listen to all of the information that's coming out on testing and the new procedures, and things continue to change every week. But we are grateful that parents and students and staff continue to be flexible and learn and roll with this as it continues to develop. I wanted to just mention that we had a very successful first Bagels with the Board last week, and we are going to continue to have those. There's going to be one at the middle school on the 29th from 8 to 9:30 in the morning. There'll be one at PHS on the 10th of November at 3 p.m. so that students are able to attend. And there will be another one on the 12th of November at Riverside from 8 to 9:30. And those are simply opportunities to meet with some board members and simply chat and talk to us about what's on your mind and get to know who we are. And you can put a face with a name, or you're not on a screen and you're not just watching us do meetings, and we want to get out there and hear what's going on in the schools. So those have been very successful in the past, and we're happy to be able to continue those. And I want to thank Debbie Braunfeld on this board for her initiative in making those happen again. So thank you, Debbie. I think that's all I had to say. And then I'm ready to turn it over to Superintendent Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. How are you? And let's see, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Good evening. So this evening for the superintendent's report, I will be discussing the recommendations to the board for the CSA goals for SY22. But before I get into that, I did want to provide, if you don't mind, just a few reminders and updates regarding health and safety, since we are still in a pandemic. So I too would like to thank our staff and also our families for completing each day their daily symptom screeners via Crisis Go. Thank you so much. I've been chatting with our building principals and also our supervisors in various areas, and they are all reporting that they're seeing less and less individuals that need the reminders to complete that quick check. So thank you so much for that. We have been hearing from the Public Health Department that the emergency approval for the vaccination of students that are between the ages of 5 to 11 are soon on its way. So we are, thank you to our Director of Special Services for coordinating a couple of vaccination clinics that will take place here in district towards the end of November. However, we have been told through the Public Health Department that several of the pediatric groups in the Princeton area are all geared up and ready to vaccinate any children between those age frames for families that would like to have their children vaccinated. The other quick announcements, again, we have a few holidays that are coming up, whether it's NJEA convention at the end of next week or toward the end of the month in November, Thanksgiving. So please, please, please continue to follow the guidance that is published. It changes very frequently. So we are counting on each other to be sure that we are keeping our community safe as it relates to travel, particularly if you are unvaccinated when you get back. All right, so those are all the health and safety updates. Oh, one final update. How did I forget this? We did meet with the vendor that has been assigned to the district to help assist us with screening our students. We're primarily targeting unvaccinated students, but any student that would like to participate in weekly screening. So the name of the vendor is Miramis. We had our first meeting with them last Wednesday. We did select the option where they will be coming on site to do the screening right at the schools. They will be at each school. Right now, we've set it up that they will be at each school weekly with the exception of the high school. However, we will try to make arrangements with the middle school if there are any high school students that would like to participate. This is completely up to the families. However, if you do desire for your child to participate, you do have to complete the consent form and also the HIPAA waiver, which was sent out again last Friday to families. So that screening process should be beginning relatively soon, but we will be sure to send out the announcements to everyone. Okay, so I'm going to get into this evening's presentation. It will be very brief on my part. I just wanted to share with the board the goals that I'm recommending along with the metrics that I would provide to the board and the community mid-year and also the end of year. I did provide to the board, and I can also share with the community the background slides, which contains the district goals, the more specifics, as well as the departmental and the school goals, which have all been aligned to the 4 commitments that we chatted about earlier. All right, again, the purpose of goal setting is to really help an organization design systems and the supporting conditions for leading and implementing the various actions that we should take to help close the gap between our vision, our desires for equity and inclusion, and where we currently are. We use a framework that's based on research. And the particular framework that we use to help identify our 4 commitments is through the Building Equitable Learning Environments Framework, BEL, which was published recently through a cohort of researchers, but most notable organization that we've been working with is National Equity Project. So this just provides a real high level of the 4 commitment areas that we're focusing on this school year. And the strategic goal from the district's current strategic plan. And you will see in the last column, the highlights of key tasks. So again, I will just really briefly provide a Reader Digest version. And board members, if you would like to take a look through the background slides that I provided to you earlier this evening, you can certainly let me know if you have any specific questions. Once again, for commitment area number 1, that really is supporting strategic goal where we want to inspire innovation and experimentation in both teaching and learning. So we are committed as a school district with providing the systems, the structures, the supporting conditions for our staff so that every educator in Princeton Public Schools every day has an opportunity for job-embedded professional learning opportunities. We're really trying to look at professional learning, not as a thing that we do, but rather as who we are, our culture, that we are inspiring the staff for continuous individual and collective inquiry and reflection of our practices. So some of the key highlights for this year is supporting our school leaders and our departmental leaders with developing and implementing SMART goals that are aligned to our 4 commitments, as well as supporting our leaders in having one-on-one conversations with certified staff members and some uncertified staff members as well, around what individual goals that will help every individual support these 4 commitments. Commitment area number 2 is supporting the strategic goal of promoting equity, and access. And it was really interesting to hear our student leaders this evening talk about the commitment to provide not just some, but all of our students with high quality experiences in their classroom setting. The jargon term that we've been using is called deeper learning. And that basically means that we want to provide access to our students where they are learning in ways that will take them outside of the classroom, where they can transfer that knowledge and also apply it in other settings to help themselves, their community, and others. So some of the highlights of key tasks that you will see in our plans, you will see departments and schools really doing a deeper dive in some curricular revisions. That curricular revision is allowing students to see themselves and what they are studying, and also to see others throughout various identities and what they are studying. It also means with some of the curricular revision work that we're seeing our departments and staff take a deeper dive in the formats of the assessments that we're providing, not just the paper and pencil, but authentic forms of assessments where there are performance tasks and there are project-based learning. And where students are designing and showing their knowledge in ways where they have an audience that is larger than just their teacher or just in their classroom or school. And then finally, one of the other key tasks that you will find in our commitments and action plan this year is that we really want to begin, I should say, build upon the work that the district has started with designing or creating a cross-role team that will help us to design a multi-tiered systems of support. And that multi-tiered system of support on both the academic side as well as the behavioral side is what we feel is a necessary component to help continue to promote equitable access to that deeper learning experiences that are a part of commitment area 2. Commitment area number 3, probably the most essential commitment area for us, because of the last almost 2 years of attempting to work and go to school during a pandemic with students and staff who may have lost family members or have had significant changes to the structure of their homes, their environments. The high number of students that we have seen that have suffered, and staff and family members who have suffered from depression or isolation. Commitment area 3 for us, basically in a nutshell, says that we want to design routines and procedures that are focused on building community, where we are bringing together and developing relationships, student to students, adult to students, that will promote healing and prepare our brains for learning. So that connects with the district's strategic goal of promoting a culture of care, connectedness, and communications across our schools. So we see commitment area 3 probably across all of our school goals and in many of our departmental goals, promoting collaboration, promoting various activities where we are recognizing staff, where we are communicating across our schools around the work that's happening, where we really are focusing on the social, emotional, and well-being of our students and our staff. Commitment area number 4 is really using a broad range of data where we're not just looking at quantitative data, but we're also listening to stories and narratives. And we're using that information to continuously improve, whether that is in the classroom, where we're meeting the needs of our learners, or if that is as a departmental leader of, let's say, facilities or technology or communications, where we're listening to the needs of our stakeholders and we are responding to those needs in a regular cycle of improvement. That ties to the strategic goal of every child known, promoting relationships and instruction that discovers and cultivates the unique gifts, talents, and interests that each student, and I should say every staff, possesses. So some of the highlights of key tasks, again, is that continuous loop of improvement, whether that's in the classroom or outside of the classroom. So we really want to work on strengthening the capacity of our leaders to have that cycle of improvement as a key skill set. Some vital signs of success. If we do those things really well, what are some ways that we could see that we're moving the needle forward? And I know for Princeton, this probably feels very simplified in terms of student experiences in terms of their learning and well-being. But there are 2 things that I will point out. Number 1, we are still in a pandemic. So sometimes less is more, especially when you are focused on levers that really are shown to be great predictors of future success. And chronic absenteeism, as well as looking at the GPA of our middle schoolers, particularly students in grade 8, are 2 huge predictors for student success once they get to the high school or even beyond. The second vital sign of success that I am recommending that we look at is just student stories, narratives, surveys, narratives in terms of just talking to students via focus groups or listening to students via surveys. So those 3 vital signs are what we would really hope to see across our school and departmental goals. But as a district, it would be the data that I would like to report out to the community and the board on an ongoing basis this school year. Other vital signs of success deal with what we would want to look at in terms of our practices. So first, looking at the investments in our staff, whether it's professional learning or collaboration opportunities that we provide for staff. They might include recognition activities that are centered on the achievement of the goals that are designed for student learning around those 4 commitments. Professional learning opportunities that are provided to staff around the curriculum revision work. The feedback that we provide to staff, whether it's formal feedback or informal feedback, the conferences that are provided to staff around their lesson planning or the delivery of their, not just the instruction, but the delivery of some of the social emotional opportunities and routines in the classroom. And then the use of student voices to inform the changes that are made in instructional practices or even the learning environment or our schools in general. Other vital signs of success really would fit under the umbrella of what the supporting conditions we are providing as a school district, and ways that we might monitor that this school year might be the number of schools that are sharing their mid-year or end-of-year results from their school goals with their student body, their staff, and their families, and to have a two-way communication opportunity where they're getting feedback on their performance as it relates to their goals. The number of schools that have weekly opportunities to share out what's happening in classrooms as it relates back to those 4 commitment areas. That might be newsletters, it might be social media posts, it might be Zoom town hall meetings. The list could go on. The number of the schools that are designing opportunities for students to provide their voice around what's happening, again, aligning back to those 4 commitment areas. Some other vital signs may be related to the specific work on the district's convening the committee and developing that MTSS framework. As well as administering and reviewing surveys for our back office or on the business side of the school district for those departments use only to use the information that they gather from our internal stakeholders and continuously make improvements to the service that we provide to our clients. And I think that's it. The other parts of the presentation that I provided earlier this evening to the board is just background information regarding district goals, as well as background information regarding departmental goals, and background information regarding school goals. You will see that every leader has design school or departmental goals that are aligned back to the commitment priority areas. And they have specific ways that they are planning to measure success. And they are, I know they are, committed to sharing out their progress throughout this school year. So that really concludes my superintendent's report for this evening. Again, I have submitted to the board for your review the first 5 slides, which really highlights the specific goals as well as the vital signs, which I am recommending to the board as a mechanism for your evaluation of the superintendent this year. Questions, Betsy?
I just want to say thank you, Dr. Kelly. I think especially the fact that the goals are aligned with our strategic plan is really a great way to connect all the work that's happening in our district. And I look forward to hearing updates throughout the year. So thank you very much.
Jean?
Thanks, Dr. Kelly. That was great. I have a beginner's question for you, please. I was wondering about measuring things like early literacy rates or participation in extracurricular and clubs, things like that. Would measuring things like that also point to, signs of success?
They really would. I think in an ordinary year, you probably would see more of the student experiences. So it's definitely for this school year, sorry, you're jumping around on my screen. For this school year, narrowed down in scope and really try to select like the levers that would give us the most indicators. Daphna?
Beth, did you want to ask a question about the presentation?
Yes, I did. Just
Okay,
one
go ahead,
quick
please.
thing.
Mhm.
I also was just wondering, I guess we do have narrowed, I really appreciate this presentation and I'm learning so much and I really, it's so great to see where you start and then you take it through and it follows through and it's articulated through into actual measurable things. I had one question. I was wondering about more of the early elementary school level. Is there something else that are we measuring there? Because the 8th grade obviously is important for the high school, but also that early literacy and that early first, second, third grade. I'm wondering how we're catching
Yeah,
that just as
so
a,
our K-5, our pre-K, in some instances, 5 schools are this year primarily focused on the social emotional well-being. So none of them specifically have a goal around like an academic related goal. So their goals are around 3 areas, well, 2 areas really. The absenteeism, chronic absenteeism, and then the social emotional well-being. However, some of our department leaders, so we have a humanities supervisor for grades pre-K 6. You will see, like if you go to the background, you will see like the specific like goal that will have like specific measures. But this year, honestly, like our focus across the board is around social emotional well-being. Yeah, but I do think that those are important measures, but probably the 2 for us, looking at chronic absenteeism, which I saw was a concern even before, like when I was going through the interviewing process, and having a data system in place that we are personalizing and addressing the needs of those students that may need additional intervention support. And again, as I'm using this language, I'm not directing the concerns on the student. It's more so like the addressing what we can do as a system to ensure that all students have access and opportunities to learn at high levels in a deep way. But I think the focus on the social emotional well-being does not preclude the fact that we're still going to be teaching and that students will still be learning in significant ways.
Thank you.
Daphne?
Okay, thanks, Dr. Kelly. I guess I just wanted to take a step back and on behalf of the community, apologize to you for a comment that was made in the chat. I think the chat has been shut down. And, you know, we talk a lot about equity in this district, and we also talk a lot about people being upstanders. And so for the people in the public, you know, this is 2021, you would not believe some of the comments that we receive. And to the people making those comments, we are calling the police and we will be proceeding in that route. So if there's anyone on this meeting who is not here with the best of intentions, please get off the meeting. And to our student reps, you know, again, we apologize that you had to see that.
Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you, Daphne. Susan.
Thank you for that presentation. I thought there were really some great goals. I just wanted you to speak toward the social and emotional health of both our staff and administrators, because as you say, we're still in a pandemic, and it's great to have these goals for our students, but I feel like we all want to make sure that our staff is supported as they both help the children and we continue through this pandemic.
Right. We don't yet have specific data, but we have been discussing plans to gather data from staff. Anecdotally, I will say that the staff is not well. I would say anecdotally, I don't think that the students are well. And a part of it might be, COVID pandemic fatigue. And another part is the multiple hats that individuals are wearing in the schools, and trying to keep students safe, trying to manage the ever-changing protocols, as well as trying to pretend as if like everything is normal, and it's not. So I think that from what I see, from administration on down, individuals are tired. I think every industry, right? There are shortages of staff. So very often, I think on a normal day, you have staff members who have to cover, for other staff members if an individual has to be out because they are ill or they have like another valid reason to be absent. So it's really a lot, but I am very grateful because the students, the staff, again, everyone has really come together and making the best out of a situation that is pretty difficult, and still are focused on the care and the concern of our students.
Thank you, because I want to make sure that, we feel like it's been many months that the school year started, but it's only been 2, and it's a long journey.
It is a long
Make
journey.
sure that we're leaving time and focus on making sure our teachers and staff have the energy and the drive to focus through, and that they understand that we're thinking about them also.
Absolutely. And we do have plans to look at some indicators to get a sense. So we just talked about that again today during cabinet meeting. Dan?
Thank you, Dr. Kelly, for the excellent presentation. I support your goals enthusiastically and your action plan, and want to provide as much financial resources to you as possible, particularly to address some of the needs for our English language learners brought up by our student representatives. So I wrote more of a business and financial question I would like to address to the business administrator, if I may.
Yes, I think I see Matt. Okay.
Hey, Matt. And I know some of these questions precede your time, but I appreciate you answering them to the best of your ability. The Cranberry send receive relationship or agreement, I should say, contract states that Cranberry will pay the entire cost of out of district placement of the Cranberry special education students. And I know there was a presentation by the board at the library just before the contract was renewed. So my first question is, has there been any exception to the contract whereby Princeton Public Schools is paying or subsidizing part of the cost of Cranberry out of district placement of special education students?
Yeah, there have been some settlements. We found 4 over the past 7 years where we did share in the settlement costs.
So the follow-up question is, in some of those years, we bump up against the 2% cap. And so, which is by state law, we can only increase property taxes up to a 2% cap with some exceptions. And so if we're paying for Cranberry students out of district placement costs, does that mean that less money is available for our own special ed students?
Yes. And yes, that would mean that.
My third question is, if we represented to the public just prior to the renewal of the Cranberry Center agreement, that Cranberry was paying 100% of the entire cost of the outer district placements, which can be multi-year agreements. What would be the plan to correct the record that there have in fact been exceptions to this policy, to this agreement?
I'm sorry, what does this have to do with the superintendent's plan of goal setting? Help me understand. It's going in a direction that's not consistent. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't bring it up. I'm just not sure that this is the proper time to do that.
I preface my comments, Michelle, which is to say, in an environment where there's a cap on spending, a 2% cap by state law, we need to provide the superintendent resources to carry out her action plan. And I want to make sure.
But I still maintain, and I'm going to ask the chair because I think you're out of order. And I'm going to ask the chair to ask you to defer this conversation and these comments to new business or another point in the agenda, because I think it distracts from a terrific presentation about where we're going, the school district's direction is, as opposed to what may have happened in the past.
Okay, I'm happy to defer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Let's just do that.
Are there any other questions? I think for the superintendent's report, and help me, Bob, am I turning the floor over to you next?
I think we had the remote learning plan next, Carol.
Okay. Oh, I think you might be on
mute.
Can you help me, please, Matt, and display the presentation?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not it. Oh. Nope. Nope. Okay. So the state has required under Public Law 2020, Chapter 27, that every school district provide by the end of this week, actually, a remote schooling plan in case districts have to close for some sort of medical or health emergency for 3 days or more. So this is the plan that we've presented, and the information in the plan is derived from items from plans that we developed last spring from April to June. We had a bunch of staff members and some public involved in helping us create plans that we provided to Dr. Galasso, who I think sent them off to Dr. Kelly before she came, so that she had a sense of where we were going. So we've taken items from that plan. We also did a survey last spring, the end of June, early July, where we asked parents to tell us what had worked well last year, where they thought we could improve. We received over 1,000 responses, which is actually pretty hefty. We reviewed them all, and many of the suggestions that we received in there are also within the plan that we're presenting. So we'll go on to the first slide, if you will, Matt, please, or the next slide. So we have 3 scenarios in the plan. One is for when individual students have to go on remote schooling. And actually, this part of the plan has already been happening because we have had cases of youngsters who have been had to go on quarantine or remain at home because of close contacts and so forth. So that part of the plan actually is now in writing, but we've been implementing it since almost the first week of school. The second scenario relates mostly to elementary schools where we may have, if there's some sort of outbreak within a particular classroom, since those classrooms are more or less self-contained cohorts, where we might have to have a specific class go on a quarantine. And so that's the second scenario. And then the third scenario is whether we have either a whole school or actually the whole district, and what we would do in those cases if we had to go to remote schooling. I should say that our commitment is, and it's in the plan, our commitment is that we believe kids learn best, well, most kids learn best during in-person instruction and full day instruction. So that is what's in the plan, and we're trying to accommodate everybody to the best extent we can with full-time instruction. If you can go to the next slide, please. So we have a collaborative decision-making process when we have to consider whether or not we'll be going on to remote instruction or not. The collaborative process includes Dr. Kelly, Mickey Crisafulli, who's the head of our Student Services Department and who's been coordinating phenomenally all the things that we've been doing in terms of health and safety for our youngsters and for our staff. Jeff Grosser, who is the municipal health officer, and Rob Helmrich, who's the school district's physician, and then others, principals and so forth, whoever may be related to the decisions we have to make. So there's a collaborative decision. And the fact is that they will be considering when they make the decision include the CALI score. CALI, C-A-L-I, stands for COVID Activity Level Index. And so they'll be looking at that, whether it's high, medium, low, whichever, well, actually there's four, there's very high, medium and low, moderate and low rather. And that's one of the things they'll look at. They'll look at our ability and the perhaps the health department's ability to help us with contact tracing. And I should say as an aside that all of our nurses have been trained in contact tracing. We've also been training some other staff as well so that we can do a pretty hefty job, and we ought to salute our nurses and again, Ms. Crisafulli for the work they've done in ongoing contact tracing into the evening and night, over weekends and so forth, and we thank them for their work. And a third primary factor will be the ability of medical facilities to handle if there are in fact a huge outbreak of infections. So those are the primary factors. There are secondary factors that we would include, and that's in the plan, including, by the way, considering the social emotional well-being of our staff and of our students. In the plan also, we have responsibilities for all the key players, which are teachers, aides, parents, and students. There are other people who will be making decisions too, but those are the biggest groups of populations who will need to know what our expectations are of them. So for example, for teachers, we will expect that their Canvas accounts are daily brought up to date. So folks who are on remote instruction can see what's going on and have access to all the materials and assignments they need. For the aides, it's for them also to be in touch with their teachers and with the kids to make sure that they're being able to follow through. With parents, it's to ensure that their kids arrive to all their online sessions on time and submit their children's crisis code, medical situations. And for students, we expect them also to behave in appropriate ways, to be on time and to be doing their own work. And there's a whole bunch of responsibilities for everybody in there, but that's just an example of what's in there for everybody to take a look at. And then the other arrangements, the actual plan or the state law that requires this, it requires us to include something for the distribution of meals, which will basically follow what we did last year. If people are on remote instruction, that we will let them know that they can either pick up meals for their families, for their children at the school, or where that's not possible because people don't have transportation. We'll again enlist our bus drivers, another bunch of unsung heroes who will make sure we deliver meals to families who need them. We also have to ensure in the plan that we've arranged for everyone to have access remotely. And again, our one-to-one device program certainly takes care of that. We've also arranged for hotspots for families who don't have internet connectivity. And also the requirement is for at least a 4-hour instructional day. If we're on remote instruction, our schedule, our plan calls for full instructional days. We'll follow the same schedules we now have. They'll just be done remotely. So we've addressed those issues. And finally, we have to, by law again, do some notifications. So upon board approval of the plan, we will post it on our website so everybody can read through it, and we invite comments. The plan can be revised if necessary as conditions change, or if someone makes another suggestion to us that is that we ought to include or something that we ought to delete. Certainly let us have your feedback on that. We already sent a copy of the draft plan, which the board hopefully will approve tonight, to the Cranberry superintendent. So Cranberry has a copy of what we'll be doing. And also we will be copying our preschool private partners, the YMCA and so forth, because their kids are our kids and our kids are their kids. And we want them to know what we're doing as well. So I think that's about it, unless people have questions or concerns.
Thank you, Dr. Ginsberg. Does anyone have any questions? If not, we appreciate that. Very lengthy and thorough presentation.
Okay, and then tonight, it's on, I think, the consent agenda. So if you guys approve it, we'll get it all posted tomorrow.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that takes us to the referendum update. Mr. Bolden?
I just have a quick question for Dr. Kelly. Marigula also had a short presentation, I believe. Are we on the same page? Although I did not post it, we did not post it on the agenda.
Yeah, she's going to do a presentation. I think it's part of your, we're making part of your report, Carol, on the testing results from last spring for the AP exams, the student, the SATs and the ACT exam. So can we move to Marigula, if that's okay?
Yes. Yes.
Marigula, go to it. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, everyone, and good evening. Thank you for having me here today. As you know, by law, we have to present the district testing report to the Board of Education as well as the public. So that's what I'm here for. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so as you are aware, the NJSLA exams got canceled the last 2 years. So the only data we have this fall to present are the AP scores, the SAT and the ACT scores. And so that's what I'm going to present today. The topics for discussion are, we are going to be talking about the analysis of the scores for AP, SAT and ACT, as well as our observations for continuous improvement. Starting with the AP comparison, our students this spring sat and took AP exams in 32 subject areas. Not all of them are offered at Princeton High School. Some of the exams the students self-studied for and took the exams. Here are the enrollment numbers. This is the comparison of the number of Princeton Public School students who were enrolled in an AP course compared to the state. As you can see, we had 49.7% students in Princeton Public Schools enrolled in AP courses, whereas 35.7% of the state students were enrolled in one or more AP courses. Now, students taking one or more AP exam for Princeton Public Schools, the number is 40.1% versus the state's number of 28.9%. This slide explains the AP scores and how they are interpreted. A score of 3 or higher is considered as a passing score, and colleges generally, usually will accept a score of a 4 or a 5 to award the student AP credit, which goes towards their college courses credits. The next slide gives you a summary of this year's exams. We administered a total of 1,452 exams, out of which 85% of our students scored a 3 or a higher. So this table gives you the number of students who got a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1. And as you can see from the data over here, that 85% of our students scored a 3 or higher on the AP exams. Every fall, the College Board recognizes the AP students who have demonstrated exceptional achievement in the AP exams. So these are the 4 awards that are given out every fall. Out of the total number of students who took the AP exams, 80 of our students were awarded the AP Scholar exam. 61 students were awarded the AP Scholar with honor. 175 students received the AP Scholar with distinction, and we had one student who was awarded the AP International Diploma.
Marigela, may I add something here?
Sure.
We also had an additional student that we just got a letter about last week who on the AP Physics, was it the magnetism?
AP Physics C, electricity and magnetism.
Yes, out of the entire world, only 2 students, I mean the world, not the country and not the state, only 2 students got perfect scores, and one of them was a Princeton High School student.
Thank you for adding that, Bob. This next slide gives the 5-year comparison for Princeton Public Schools. The last column on the right is the current year's analysis. So in 2021, we administered, as I said earlier, 1,452 exams to 613 students. Out of these 613 students, 526 students scored a 3 or a higher on the AP exams, which means that, as I said earlier, 85% of our students scored a 3 or a higher, which is slightly less than what we have done in the previous years. But please, let's not forget that the last year was a very unique year full of a lot of challenges. So given the challenges that our students and staff are working under, 85.8% of students getting a 3 or higher is an achievement. This slide gives us the comparison of Princeton Public School versus the state over 5 years of students who scored a 3+ or higher. And without exception, as you can see, and what was expected, our students have outperformed the state every year. We also, I heard what our student leaders were saying, as well as everybody on the panel. Our focus is to bridge the opportunity gap, which is why we do take a look at the ethnic distribution and what the data says over there. So on this slide, what you will see is that we have listed the total number of students enrolled in PHS for each subgroup, and out of that, how many students took an AP exam in each ethnic subgroup, and what was that percentage of the total number of students in each ethnic subgroup. So I'm pretty sure the data tells us very clearly where we need to focus our energy and our resources, and it is not anything new that we are seeing this year compared to what we have seen in the past. Moving on to the SATs. For the SATs, here is the 5-year comparison for mathematics as well as reading and writing. This last column on the right gives us the mean scores for 2021. In mathematics, our students had a mean score of 664, whereas for reading and writing, the mean score was 670. This slide compares Princeton High School with the New Jersey as well as the national mean scores. And again, without exception, we have outperformed both the state and the nation in both reading, writing, as well as mathematics, as well as the total score. So we are way ahead of, as expected, of both the state and the national averages. Again, here we have the total number of students who took the SAT exam. As you can see that there were 256 students who took the exam. Out of this 256, 64% of the students, which is 163, they took the essay portion of the SAT also. The mean scores are also listed over here. For total, the mean score for English reading writing was 664. And for students who took the essay portion, the mean score was 668. For math, it is 670 and 678 respectively. And the total mean scores are 1334 and 1345 respectively for the two groups. Again, we did the analysis by subgroup, and we have listed over here the total number of students in each subgroup who took the SAT exam and compared to the national percentages for each ethnic subgroup. Here we have listed the mean scores for English reading, writing, math, and the total. Now, again, goes without saying that in every ethnic subgroup, we did outperform the nation, but within Princeton Public School, if you take a look at the numbers within each ethnic subgroup, comparing one ethnic subgroup to another, again, the data tells us the same story that we have been seeing for the past many years, where the work needs to be done. And our student leaders have clearly identified the groups where we need to focus our energies and resources. We did a further dive and took the total scores and broke them up by bands. So we have, out of 256 students, 105 students scored between 1400 and 1600 and so on. So if you look at percentages, we had 41% of our students who scored between a 14 and a 1600. The next slide gives the breakdown for the English reading, writing portion and the math. We did the same thing. We did the breakdown by 100, 700 to 800. So we had 39% of our students score between 700 and 800 for English reading, writing, and 44% of our students scored between 700 and 800 for the math portion of the SAT. Again, doing the analysis by subgroup, it tells us the same picture, the same story that the other analysis had done. And we will be using these data to, concentrate our resources and provide the support that is needed and where it is needed. This is the same thing for the deep down for English reading, writing, as well as math by ethnic subgroup. And last, we have the ACT comparison. For ACT, this year, we've had only 47 students take the ACT compared to 227 last year, 170 the previous year, and so on. So with only 47 students taking the ACT, the data is skewed. It does not give us the whole picture. I've listed over here the composite mean score, as well as the score for each of the subject areas. The composite and each subject area, the maximum score possible is 36, except for writing, which is scored out of a total of 12. Here we have just the current years. And again, as I said, we had only 47 students take the ACT this year, which skews the data. And so we do not have a clear picture of what the ACT scores were for this year as yet. We are waiting for more data to come, and we will do the further analysis once we have the final data for this current school year. And here is the analysis by subgroup. Again, like I said, with the low numbers of students in the different subgroups, the data is skewed and does not give us the correct picture. And to end the presentation, here are the goals for continuous improvement. As we have all said today and in the past, that we have to come up with the processes and the system improvements to enhance accessibility to all students for the AP classes. We have to have processes in place to enable and promote more students to take the AP exam. Sometimes it might be a matter of being able to pay to take the exam. We are each department is conducting a score analysis for program improvement. As Dr. Kelly has stated in her presentation, each department supervisor is working with their staff to review the curriculum and to revise it to make sure that the supports are in place for all our students and we are meeting the needs for all our students, which also includes providing professional growth opportunities for AP teachers as well as for all teachers, because it's a collective effort. By the time the students get to the AP classes, it's not just the AP teachers who are responsible for the achievement. They are building on the foundation laid by other teachers. So we are working towards providing professional development for all our staff members. That's what I have for you right now.
Okay, if I can just add something, all of our children in grades 4 through 11 took the Start Strong assessment at the end of September. And because the state's window for doing that testing went all the way through last Friday, October 22nd, while we have the individual reports and teachers I know at the elementary school and middle school have been using that data to share with parents during parent-teacher conference, we don't have the overall report comparing norms. So either at our November or December board meeting, when we get the results from the state, we'll then do another report where we'll report the Start Strong results to everybody.
Okay, thank you. I'll go first. Thank you, Marigela. Thank you, Bob. Marigela, is it possible for you to put up your PowerPoint again? Is that possible? And to go back to the slide where you compare Princeton Public Schools to the state. In the meantime, I'll just share what I shared at the Student Achievement Committee meeting. I don't think we have a complete picture of how our students are doing when we don't include the 20% of the kids who are receiving special education services. Again, that's really, really vital information that I think we all should know. And so I would hope that the next time this is presented, that information is included and that the SAC committee receives that information shortly. And then my next point here is that, and this is great, congratulations, Marigela, on the science, it's great. Equity for me is everyone succeeds to their full potential. So if we have kids who are scoring, getting a perfect score on a physics AP exam, we're meeting that child's needs. To the other end, you know, you compared our SAT scores. I know they're coming somewhere.
Okay, which slide do you want me to?
I want the one where it's our, let's go the SAT compared to the state.
Compared to.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the next slide. Where's the state?
That was for the AP.
Okay, can we go to that?
Do it for the national.
Yep. If we could just go to the AP then, because I just want to make a point. When we received, you know, an RA. Okay, so clearly our students outperform the state when it comes to APs. And so when we received the special education report, a lot of the data was that we were, in some cases, meeting the state expectations, some cases we were not. And so I just want to point out to my fellow board members that we should have the same expectations for our special education students, and that the fact that they're meeting state averages really shows that we are not meeting their needs when you consider that our highest achieving children are far exceeding the state average. So I just wanted to point some attention to that. Thank you.
So Daphne, your question about the number of AP students who were identified as special ed students, I did do that, find out that number. We had 18 students, that is 3% of the total students who took AP exams who were identified as students with IEP. The problem is that the College Board does not collect that information. So we do not get that analysis from College Board. We have to do an in-house analysis.
No, I appreciate that. And then that 3%, was that 18 individual students or was it 18 exams? It was 18 individual.
Correct.
18 individual. Okay. And then do we know of those students, how many were children of color?
That I have not done, but I can get you that data.
Well,
sure.
That's fine. My point again is for next year, when we are looking at these pictures, we need to look at all the pictures. So if we have 3% of the kids taking APs are children with special needs, then what percent, you know, and it probably will be very, very low if you extrapolate that out to our children of color in special education. But I just think for the board to have a complete picture of the success of our students, you know, because 100% of, you know, white kids aren't taking AP exams, right? So it's not that, you know, color is the determining factor, but we have an understanding of how certain kids are doing, a better understanding than we do of others. And so I'm just asking for some more visibility. so that we all, you know, we all understand that kids are capable of this. And then what are we doing? Because like you said in your, at the end, which I really appreciate, we're going to make it more accessible, but there also has to be, you know, support when those kids get into the AP classes. Because I can tell you for my own child, you know, that wasn't always necessarily the case. And, you know, when you go to fill out college applications, you know, that matters. It matters how many AP classes you take. So when there is an invisible barrier, that hurts certain kids. So that's all I'm trying to say. I know that you're trying to make things better for kids. I just think we need more data as a board.
Daphne, if I can just add a comment, part of the difficulty, as Marigela said, is that most of these reports are based on the information we get directly from the AP folks. One of the things that the board has agreed to is that we will be implementing a data warehousing system this year, and then we will have that data in-house, and it'll be easier. Right now, Marigela, to her credit, went through all the records one by one herself so she could find which kids were special ed and so forth. We'll be able to do that more efficiently in the future because we'll have a whole data warehousing thing and we can do searches and get that information for you. So in answer to your question, next year at this time, it should be a more complete report.
Okay, and again, Marigela, I really commend your commitment to equity for all students, and I appreciate the extra work that you did to get us that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Daphne. I'd just like to add one thing, Daphne. You know, I totally understand what you're saying. And I also believe that we cannot wait till the student gets to the AP class before we put in the supports. We have to start working from the ground level itself to correct the system, you know, and put those supports in place at the right time so that these students, you know, the students that we are talking about, that we are concerned about, they have those opportunities and get there. That is the whole reason we are starting those bridge programs, whether they are for rising 9th graders or for rising 6th graders. Middle school is crucial. That's where, you know, the support systems have to be in place. We cannot wait till the student gets to the high school to start putting those systems in place. So that is something that Dr. Kelly has tasked all of us with. When I say all of us, I mean all administrators, not just the content supervisors, but building principals, everybody as a team, that we are working on, you know, identifying what are the deficiencies in our system and coming up with plans to correct that system so that the needs of all our students are met. Because as I, you know, have stated many times, we have done enough talking. We need to start doing the work now.
Thank you very much.
Michelle?
Michelle's
Okay.
next.
I guess my observation has to do with when I think about wellness. You know, we spend a lot of time talking about wellness. We have a later school day, start time for the high school. And so, you know, as I look at these statistics and I see 49% of our students enrolled in AP courses, and we hear a lot about the stress that our students are under. While these are, you know, I'm glad that our students excel, and I'm glad that we have this school district where we have these high levels of achievement, but I also wonder at what price. And so I just want to put that out there before we start, you know, once again, talking about how we're such a great school district. I think our kids pay such a significant price. I think the other thing that I want to point out is, do AP courses or these AP exams really get kids credit when they go to college? Because that was not my experience. I had a kid who took a bunch of APs and took a bunch of AP exams and scored well on them. And then when she got to college, they were like, no, we're not accepting that for credit. And so I think that it would be helpful to both parents and students to really understand what getting that 5 or that 4 on a test means, and how those scores and success on those tests are really assessed when you get to college and you're registering for classes. Because I think we oversell them, and I think it would be helpful, and maybe kids would have a more enjoyable and balanced high school experience if they really understood what kind of impact taking those classes and those exams are really going to have on their future college career.
Michelle, at our last SAC meeting, when we did this original presentation, those issues came up, and I'll answer the second one first, and then I'll go to the first. The second one is that the decision to accept credit for AP exams is actually not within our power. Each college makes that decision themselves. So I'm not sure how we address that other than maybe trying to get that kind of information from colleges and sharing it with kids. To your first question, we are concerned about that. When Jessica Baxter was the principal at Princeton High School, she had begun an AP committee to take a look at the very issues that you're talking about in terms of how many courses kids should take, the stress level, and a whole bunch of other things. And in terms of when Jessica left and COVID and all that, that went by the wayside. We did direct, Frank Shamil has now reconstituted that committee. Dana Karras is working with it, and we're including, actually, at Carol's suggestion, some middle school folks as well on it. So we're going to be taking a look at exactly the issues you raised, and actually some of the issues that Ridgela raised about going down to the middle school and starting there. So we are going to be addressing that in the coming months.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love the wellness point, and I love the fact that we're connecting our middle school and our high school educators to talk about this. So thank you. My point is very quick. Along with also always reporting out the number of special education students, I think we need to look at our low-income students and students for whom English is not their first language. So as we consider our data dashboard, we need to just report on those students and in the effort to meet their needs as well.
Yes. Peter.
Thanks. I'd like to echo Daphne and Michelle and Betsy. I appreciate this presentation, but quite frankly, and I understand that it's, some of this is mandated by the state, and much of the data is not in-house data. It's kind of given to us. I think the problem is that, for me anyway, very little of this data is useful information for me as a board member to make any decisions about what we do. I'm appreciative of the breakdowns by ethnicity and race, and those I think are somewhat helpful. But I think unless we see trends within our school over a certain number of years, comparing us to the state is really not a meaningful number. We're always going to be much higher than the state. I mean, that's why for many years we had district factor groups, and seeing something broken down that way would be much more meaningful to see how we do compared with our peers in the state. So I would, my suggestion is that we rethink not having data or having presentations, but what data we're going to present, because we could, you could slice and dice it a million different ways, but in ways that actually allows the board and future boards and board members to actually take some action from a policy standpoint about how do we achieve the things that we've talked about, from wellness, from well-being, from achievement and achievement gaps. And I think that would be more productive than the numbers that kind of the state foists upon us.
We can add that to our presentation, but by law we are required to report out this data and to have this posted on our district website. So
I totally understand. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I appreciate that, but for, you can present it to us. And for me anyway, other data would be more helpful. I appreciate this is what we have to do. I understand we're a giant bureaucracy and part of a big state and all the rest of it. But for us to make it practical, I think some of the other data, for me anyway, and maybe everyone doesn't agree with me, would be more productive.
Absolutely. And one thing I can tell you is that within the departments, that analysis is being done.
Great. Thank you, Margela.
Thank you, Margela. If there's no further questions, I think we're on, Matt, to the referendum update.
Correct. So all right, so this is a rehash of what we've been talking about now on and off since late July. We are proposing to put forth to the community health and safety referendum in order to fix roofs, skylights, gutters, siding, masonry, and some rooftop HVAC equipment that is aged out. This is a maintenance type of referendum. And we look back at the timeline where we are today is October 26th. On October 13th, the day after the last meeting, the state did, Department of Education did approve our preliminary eligible cost letters for the full amount of the $17.45 million referendum, which would mean that if the referendum were moved forward and voted on, that we would receive 34% of the principal and interest of that debt service in order to pay for these necessary capital improvements, which is a great thing. One thing today on the agenda that was discussed has been really an ongoing discussion in our operations committee has that in order to move forward with a few, 4 roofs specifically, most of the roof at Littlebrook, most of the roof at Community Park, and 2 smaller sections at the high school, the old gym, and room 152, which is that trapezoid shaped room that faces the street that I can never remember the name of, the side street there that cuts between Moore and Walnut. So in order to move those forward, we are proposing tonight to award Spiesel Architecture Group part of the contract that would be necessary to prepare the bid specs such that right away within about a week of a possible referendum passing, that we will be able to go to the street and put the bids out in order to get that work done next summer. So that's where we sit tonight. In 2 weeks, a lot of the board meeting will be spent going over some more of the details, dollar numbers, tax impact analyses, and possible debt service scenarios regarding the possible referendum that would be on January 25th, 2021. The following week on November 16th would be where the board could approve the preliminary eligible cost. In other words, the dollar amount of the referendum to be proposed, and then the resolution wording and authorizing a special election and the specifics of the bonds to be issued. And that's kind of where we sit. Are there any questions about the referendum from board members?
I guess I had a question, Matt, just on the timing. I think some of us have had questions about why we're having a special election in January and why it couldn't have been done last fall. And could you just talk a little bit about the timing that was involved there in terms of why we are where we are now?
Yeah, I mean, ideally we had would have liked to have it done in December. There was not enough time. There's close to a 6-month lead time in order to put forth a bond referendum. There are 90 days required just on the outset in order to get back the preliminary eligible cost or PEC letters from the DOE. And then there are other, it's at least 5 to 6 months. So there was not enough time to put that forth. I know that another question that was raised in the past was the cost of that special election versus what would be the only time that would be I don't want to say, well, free for the actual election, but it cost, the last election cost $23,000, just under $23,400. So that would be the cost versus a November general election coming up a week from today, I believe, would be $0. So that would be the differential there.
And also, I mean, I guess just for the public to understand, on the operations committee, we've obviously been part of this this journey with you, but this all started with a comprehensive audit of our roofs that was done shortly after I think Dave actually started in the position. So we've been working on this now. You've been working on this for almost 2 years to prepare for this referendum, right? And there really wasn't a lot of room there to have it accelerated. You had to do the work up front to find out the scope of what needed to be done, and then do the work to kind of decide how to address the issues, right? There's just been stages all the way along, and in terms of from a board perspective, it's been pretty clear that you guys have been methodical about this process, and we obviously want to get the work done as soon as possible. So that's where we are today.
Yeah, no, I think that's very accurate. And, administratively, and I want to thank, operations and the board as a whole, and the superintendent, previous and current, been very supportive. And this is, in my mind, best practice for a Board of Education to maintain its buildings and infrastructure. Why wouldn't we? We have to replace our roofs every so often, and why wouldn't we want to get up to 34% back from the state? It's actually 40%, but the state prorates it at 85%. But no, I thank all of you for helping to move this forward. Daphne?
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for that. Really appreciate your work on this. My question has to do with logistics of voting. And, we've had this conversation before, but was it January 25th, and kids are going to be in school and we don't know where COVID is. So is it possible to request that the voting not take place in schools, which I know isn't the most strategic thing to do, but it really is in the best interest of kids?
With the special election, I think there'll be fewer voting places, and I want to write that down. I don't have.
So Matt, I will hop in there. We have reached out to the county office with that question. We're still awaiting. My assumption is that they are reaching out to the county area that oversees the elections. I don't have a crystal ball, but one of the things that we frequently hear is that the schools are centrally located, and that there aren't other places for the polling to take place. However, we did reach out and we are asking that question.
Well, that's all we can do, and I really appreciate your being so proactive on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
I would just say to encourage people to vote by mail. I think more and more people are selecting that option, and over time, we may not need a physical presence at all. And once you sign up with the county for a mail-in ballot, they automatically send it to you. And you fill it out, you drop it in the mail. Usually there's a place to drop it off, so you can bypass the postal service, and there's no need to go on the schools and then have a day off to protect the kids. So it would be great if we could, as part of our referendum process, to encourage people to vote by mail.
That's a good point, Dan. And if you are registered to receive a mail-in ballot for the special election, we were told you would receive a mail-in ballot for that election.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I can move on with the short and not so sweet food service presentation, because we're not allowed to serve too many sweets. It's a bad joke, but it was a good segue, I think. So I've been asked to kind of look at where we are with the food service this year. I want to really talk about a few of the macro or larger issues of facing all school districts, really almost across the nation, with the federal government deciding to pay for free lunch for all, which is being funded by American Recovery Plan grants. So, that's obviously good in some ways, but one thing that it's done is create a ton of demand. And so there have been national and local supply chain issues with food. Even getting the basics at time can be a struggle. They're not sure what's going to show up So from time to time, the menus have to be tweaked depending on what shows up on the food delivery truck. On top of that, we're well aware of the labor shortage. There's been a lot of wage pressure and just lack of people willing to work. You know, a lot of people, white collar and blue collar, quit their jobs in August. I forgot what they called it. The Great. I've been reading about it in the Atlantic, but it
The
was
Great
The
Resignation.
resignation.
resignation. Thank you. I was thinking Great Recession. That's not it. I knew that was. Thank you, Betsy, for jumping in there and saving me. So that's been pressuring our distribution of food at the schools, and also, so with those issues, NutriServe is basically doing double the meals with 7 less staff than in a normal year. So it's really, they've been doing a great job. I have to say that some of my staff, we've had 8 people in the business office facilities realm jump in and help out with food prep, including myself. We've had a couple people from Bob's area help out with transportation on a given day due to lack of transportation aids. So, you know, I really want to thank those people for jumping in and are been really willing to help, which is great. So that's the turkey and cheese sandwich. I went over to the middle school today and ate. It actually was very good. I thought the turkey was my non-expert opinion of a high quality, higher than some of the, I don't want to get blamed for slander, so I won't name some of the chains that serve deli meat, but I definitely felt it was higher quality than some of those chains. I've promised to go over from time to time, at least once a week, and eat some of the food at some of the schools so we can make sure we're monitoring the quality. One of the stats I wanted to put out there was, so year over year, 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, September of current year, 2021 versus September 2019, NutriServe is now doing 38 meals per labor hour versus 15 meals per labor hour back in 2019. So that is more than doubled, about 2.5 times. NutriServe has raised their starting salary and is looking, so as a local public relations call out, they've raised their starting salary and are working with their union currently. They are unionized employees. They are NutriServe's employees, not our own. We've also implemented grab and go style, especially at our elementaries this fall, in order to get them outside to eat and stay safe. We have 8 current openings at NutriServe. So like I said, if anyone's willing to come out and help, you can get paid. One of the things positives I wanted to point out, which I understand is going really well at the high school, to celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month. You can see the menu this week. Pollo asado was today, beef picadillo, pollo arvejado, paella, which I love personally. So this has been going real well this week. I got some nice shout outs from the new principal, Shmuel, at the high school. He enjoyed some of the food. I want to always reiterate how important parent and student input is, and when every so often we do get complaints, we reach out and research them. Like I said, I'm committed to personally tasting the food, and we do want to say though, as a parent and family member, if your child, you know, gets a sandwich or whatever, a meal that, you know, there's something wrong with, they should bring it right up to the kitchen staff at that school at that time. That is the best way to resolve the issue. I also want to point out, you know, something I think a lot of us are aware of, that, you know, all meal choices may not necessarily be exactly what every parent would prefer to serve. As parents, we have different ideas. I know when my kids were young, I was fairly strict. I like to, make my daughter, she liked pancakes, but I would insist on making her whole grain pancakes. We do a nice job with, whole grains and such, but just keep in mind that, there are limitations on, what we can serve, and that everybody's, aside from a dietary restriction, we will meet those, that it may not necessarily be up to each individual parent's exact specifications. And our goal ultimately is to serve students a healthy, tasty breakfast and our lunch every day. And we will work hard to do that. And that's it. I'd like to take any questions if there are any.
Matt, thank you so much for that. I hear a lot about school lunch from my boys, so thank you very much for that. I'd love to, at some point throughout the year, I've spoken with Dr. Kelly about this, hear qualitatively about how free lunch for everyone has changed school culture, if there's been any positive outcomes. We know that there are great strides we can take for equity when school lunch is provided to everyone. So as a board, when we think really boldly, and of course we'd need likely outside funders to do it, but what if we were to do this for all students all the time? It's just a bold, big idea. And I'd love to just hear, as we have this test case this year, right, where it's being offered by the federal government. Also, NutriServe pre-pandemic used to hold focus groups for students and families. And I know as an elementary school parent years ago, I was asked to participate. That would be great eventually, once we get past, this crunch time, but really hearing from families about what's working for them. But thanks so much for doing that. And thanks to all of our cafeteria workers for providing all these lunches.
Thank you.
Daphne?
Okay, thank you. Matt, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation, and also, I sent you a photo of some not so appetizing food, and you responded by 5 hours later going to a school and helping to prepare lunch. And, I know you have so much going on, but it's important that, our families know that we're very concerned about the quality of the food, and that we're serving, healthy food to our kids. So I just wanted to thank you for going above, and I think you also prepared lunch that day. So I just wanted to thank you for going above and beyond for the kids. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dan?
You're muted.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. It's an important issue for our kids, particularly in the pandemic years. And it's something that I hear about from various kids, and kids today have more and more specialized appetites, diets, vegetarians, gluten-free, various allergies and all that. So I know it's a big challenge to, address all of those needs, but it's an important one. So whatever we can do to increase the range of choices for those on a more specialized diet. A vegetarian, by definition, doesn't eat deli meat. And so, some of the food choices other than that don't look quite as appetizing. So, that's just the times we live in, more and more specialized diets.
No, I completely understand. I actually was a vegetarian for 8 months at one point in time. So I do understand that it is important, and hopefully the food supply chain will ease up here shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay. Thank you very much, Matt. If there's no further questions, I think that takes us to our public comment. We are in our public comment session. It's J1. The public is invited to approach the board on any topic. Under New Jersey law, the board shall not discuss personnel matters and shall not respond to comments made by members of the public. Princeton Public School employees retain all the rights regarding defamation and slander according to the laws of New Jersey. The board shall not entertain such comments, nor shall the board be held liable for comments made by members of the public. Further, the board asks that citizens who choose to speak at public board meetings be reminded that comments should always be respectful, non-defamatory, and should maintain the level of decorum appropriate for a meeting of a public body. So thank you for your consideration. If you have to speak, if you would like to speak, please state your name, your street address, and your town, and let us know who you are before you speak. Thank you.
I see no questions at this time.
All right. If there's no questions, then we'll move on. That takes us to item K.
Wait, hold on. There's two now.
People always raise their hand.
Yeah.
Megan Mitchell.
Hi.
Hi.
This is Megan Mitchell, 49 Clearview Avenue. And I just wanted to mention there's been some discussion regarding conferences at the middle school in particular. And this year, and as they did last year, they're only doing a more intervention style of conference that is addressing 15% of the students with a team approach. My comment is that all students are missing 4 afternoons of school to accommodate these interventions, and that they are really more interventions than conferences, as they're all students who were identified by teachers as having some sort of an issue or problem in school. I would ask that this model be revisited for future years. In addition, in all the co-taught classes, the 15% of students are all gen ed students. The 20% that are receiving special education services, they're having simultaneous conferences with only the special ed teachers. So all of those families that have kids with IEPs, their conferences are only with the special ed teachers and not with the gen ed co-teachers, which I think is problematic. So I would just like to revisit this, either have a conference for all or not have conferences for anyone, but not to have these intervention style conferences that cause all the rest of the kids to have to miss school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, I'm a little slow on the trigger here. Cynthia Bregenzer.
Hi, it's Cynthia Bregenzer. I'm from actually Hopewell, New Jersey, and I'm a teacher at the high school. I just wanted to kind of point out and say thank you to Mr. Bolden for the review of NutriServe, but I did want to kind of point out and give a little shout out for our school to work program that takes place at the high school, because each and every day we have at least 5 students that are helping out in the NutriServe kitchens, and you know, they're working really hard trying to make everything copacetic and enjoyable for their entire school. So I just wanted to give that shout out and say thank you for the review that you did.
Cynthia, before you go, thank you. Can you tell us about the kids, what program you run? Because not everyone is aware. Thanks.
Absolutely. I work the program, it's called School to Work, which works with our students with special needs. And we work with a combination of our students with autism, our Bridges group, our LLD group, or any students that might find that they need some kind of work experience. And what we do is we get our students out and involved into the community so that they can learn about employment and what skills that they need to be successful for after they leave our high school.
Well, thank you. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Jimena Scovron.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I applaud the board's focus on our children's social and emotional well-being as stated earlier in this meeting. In furtherance of that goal of promoting our children's social and emotional well-being, I would like to respectfully request that the board permit parents to once again enter school buildings. Zoom and email are not adequate replacements for physical in-person participation by parents in attending school events and meetings, assisting in the classrooms, and interacting with teachers and administrators. In addition, I would like the board to allow schools to resume field trips. These requests are supported by several PPS teachers that I have spoken to, who tell me other teachers and parents are in agreement, and who moreover have expressed their frustration with the current restrictions. Such restrictions really don't make sense in light of the fact that our schools are being openly considered to be used as public polling sites in the upcoming elections. Excuse me. In-person parent participation in all its forms is vital to the well-being of our school community and is one of the reasons that Princeton Public Schools has such a fine reputation. As you know, many of our students are children of faculty at Princeton University, and many of those parents historically have participated in enrichment programs in the classroom in their field of expertise, sharing information on such varied topics as career pathways, science knowledge and experimentation, history, and foreign language practice and culture. Parents of those in younger grades also assist in cooking projects, reading stories, arts education, and so on. Of course, parent participation is not confined to university faculty, but is just one example of how we are losing out on important enrichment programming for our children and the warmth that comes with in-person parent contact in the classroom. All of these activities have always been encouraged and facilitated by our teachers, while students are so excited and pleased to have their parent in the classroom and to meet the parents of their peers. Conducting these activities by large screen presence is not comparable, and in no way is it adequate. I have conducted such a presentation for my daughter's kindergarten classroom and found it disheartening because I could not hear the children's comments or questions or see all of them. The audio was inadequate because of the social distancing measures in place. Not permitting parents to enter the building is unnecessarily burdensome for us as well. We have no access to our teachers and administrators other than email and Zoom, whereas before access was open and unrestricted, a quick chat in the hallway or a one-on-one teacher-parent meeting. And these are really where we get to know each other and convey basic information. For instance, when my daughter loses her sweater on the playground, I can't just mention this to her teacher now in the hallway or go check Lost and Found. I have to send the teacher an email. She has to read it, respond, and remember to take my daughter to Lost and Found the next day. My child's teacher has been brilliant in this regard, but I do feel guilty bothering her after the working day was just such matters.
Thank you. I'm sorry, that's time.
Okay, can I just say one last thing?
Sure, go ahead. Just please
Thank
finish
you.
up. Thank you.
I would just like to note that the CDC in its document on guidance for K-12 schools recommends that localities should monitor community transmission, vaccination coverage, screening, testing, and occurrence of outbreaks to guide their decisions in the level of layered prevention strategies in schools. But the prohibition on parents entering school buildings and not permitting field trips do not follow this recommendation because they don't take into account the current high rates of vaccination in our town, as well as the very low COVID infection rates for many months now. Given these layers of protection, I would urge the board to allow parents to enter school buildings, to allow children to go on field trips once again. And this is a step that I think is important to lift up our morale of both the teachers and the parents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no further comment, Dr. Ginsberg, did you want to offer a clarification?
Yeah, actually, it's in our plans to take a look over the next November and December with an eye towards possibly changing our trip plans for January. But right now, given we're waiting to see what happens with vaccines for younger kids as well.
And can I also just add, I apologize, that all of the provisions that are in place are in consultation with the district's physician as well as the public health department, and we are still in a pandemic.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. If there's no further comments, I believe that takes us to the beginning of our consent agenda, which is K1, the HIB report, which is a consent item. And then we go to the board committee reports, which I guess we will go to give now. If there's any of our reports that might be abbreviated or sent to us in writing, that would also be helpful given the length of this meeting and the fact that our administrators have been at it since 4:30 this morning due to the weather.
Student achievement, we heard the report from Marigela, so that was basically it. So I'm willing to send the update to the board and Matt at some point, so I can skip it.
So as we go through them, why don't you let me know if you want to either give it or give it to us electronically. So we have equity.
Yep, I'm going to read. It's short. The Equity Committee held a closed meeting on Monday, October 11th at 7 p.m. The committee heard from staff members who teach and interact daily with our students. And the question we asked each one was, how are the children? The November 8 equity meeting will begin with a 15-minute period for public comment, and the remainder of the meeting will be closed to the public. The board's purpose for holding these meetings in closed session is to provide the supporting conditions for students and staff to share in a space where they can be open and honest so the board can better understand students' post-pandemic needs. We want to thank the community for supporting our October and November closed session meetings, and we'd also like to thank our staff for their commitment to PPS students. The December meeting will be open to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, operations?
I'll abbreviate and we'll send the full report. I just wanted to note that there are 3 things that we'll be asked to vote on that the committee has made recommendations on. The first, Matt already spoke of, authorizing SPESL to begin bid specifications. That recommendation was approved by the committee 4-1. There's a second recommendation to for an additional $88,000 for building controls to be paid for through a 5-year capital lease. The payback period is very short, and that received a recommendation, a unanimous recommendation. The third is the purchase of 2 30-passenger buses, which require a 6-month lead time presently. And the committee again supported this unanimously and recommends approval. The rest Susan will send on behalf of Susan and I and the committee.
Thank you. Personnel.
Okay, thank you. The Personnel Committee met Thursday, October 7th. As usual, I'm limited in the amount of things I can share, but I will talk about our staffing needs, our nursing. We had a discussion about the creation of additional lunch aid positions and also instructional aides. So that was the big topic for that meeting. And we will be meeting, our next meeting is on November 4th.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay. And policy, Jean?
I did send the report electronically. We met on October 15th. We'll meet again on November 19th.
Thank you. Student achievement will send the report. Thank you, Daphne.
Right. Our next meeting is November 12th. I think, Dr. Ginsburg, we might have to move the time. I'll email you because bagels with the board will run up against that. So I'll email you separately. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Negotiations, I think there's nothing there to say tonight. That takes us to our personnel agenda, and I'm going to be going through these items. I'll say them very quickly and stop me if you would like to ask a question or make a comment. Otherwise, these are all consent agenda items. Personnel appointments, personnel retirements, personnel resignations. Michelle, did you want to say something?
Well, I would like to thank our assistant superintendent.
Yeah.
Michael Volpe, who is going to be leaving the district to assume the superintendent position in Morristown, New Jersey. Michael has been with us for, I think, a little bit over 2 years. He's done a yeoman's job through the pandemic and through all the changes. And we're going to miss him, and we wish him all the best.
Thank you. Ditto. Thanks, Mike. you're out there. I don't think you are, but we do appreciate all the work that you've done. You've got us through this pandemic, and that was a tough row, and you did a lot of work, and we're grateful. Got our kids back in the buildings. M4 personnel items. M5 substitute teachers. M6 leaves of absence. M7 student services. M8 curriculum and instruction. M9 athletic appointments. N1 commission for the blind. O1 financial reports. O2 fire and evacuation. O3
Oh, yeah.
competitive-
Wait. Oh, hold on a second. I need the financial reports separated. Out.
It's now an action item.
Yep. Okay. Just want to make sure.
From one
Let's
item.
take it as an action item. Shall we,
Yep.
could I have a motion for the financial reports, please? Brian, second. Peter, thank you. Any discussion? If not, let's call a vote on the financial reports, please.
Beth Baron,
Yes.
Debbie Bronfeld,
Yes.
Dan Dart,
Yes.
Yes.
Brian McDonald,
Yes.
Michelle Tuck Ponder,
Yes.
Peter Katz,
Yes.
Daphne Kendall,
Abstain.
and Cantor.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passed. O2 fire and evacuation drills. O3 competitive contracting RFP. O4 Special Architectural Group, that's an action item. Could I have a motion, please? Brian, second. Jean, thank you. Any discussion? If not, could we call a vote, please?
Beth Baron,
Yes.
Debbie Bronfeld,
No.
Dan Dart,
Yes.
Betsy Baglia,
Yes.
Brian McDonald,
Yes.
Michelle Tuck Ponder,
Abstain.
Peter Katz,
Yes.
Daphne Kendall,
Yes.
Susan Cantor,
Yes.
Ian Durbin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Okay, then O5 bus safety drills. These are back to consent items. O6 change order authorization. O7 cooperative purchasing contract. O8 cooperative purchasing contract. Buses. O9 travel registration. And can we come to P1, the consent agenda item vote? Could I have a motion, please? Brian, second. Betsy. Any discussion? If none, can we vote, please?
Beth Baron,
Yes.
Debbie Bronfeld,
Yes.
Dan Dart,
Yes.
Betsy Baglia,
Yes.
Brian McDonald,
Yes.
Michelle Tuck Ponder,
Yes.
Peter Katz,
Yes.
Daphne Kendall,
Yes.
Susan Cantor,
Yes.
Ian Durbin.
Yes.
Consent agenda passes.
Thank you. That takes us to the next public comment. And again, we invite the public to speak with us. We have a 3-minute. We request you keep your comments to 3 minutes. We ask you please state your name and your street address in your town. We ask that you maintain, as I mentioned earlier, we are a public meeting, and please maintain a level of decorum appropriate for a meeting of a public body. And we are very mindful of privacy and defamation. So we welcome the public to come.
I am having a little issue with board docs. Sorry. Joseph Capone.
Hi, good evening. This is Joseph Capone. I live on Levitt Lane in Princeton. I have a quick question. It's not so much a comment concerning the middle school. I know it was with the athletics appointees. I noticed that the winter running club was marked as rescind. Can someone explain to me what rescind means? Simply a question. Thank you.
We do not engage in Q&A with the public, but if comments are done, would a member of the administration like to provide any clarification to that question? I think.
I'm not privy to any information about.
Well, I think that was explained to the board earlier today.
Okay.
I think that it was approved twice and once was not the right rate. And so the one that has been incorrect was rescinded. So it still is, if I'm correct, there is definitely still a running club in place. If anyone would like to correct me on that. It
I
was a
think
technical
you're
fix.
right. I think you're right about that.
A technical fix. Okay, that takes us to closing comments of the board. If there are none, I would like to take us into a short closed session if we could at the very end of this meeting. Could I ask for a motion? Daphne, a second? Jean, all in favor of adjourning into closed session? Raise your hand. I think Matt, if you could adjourn us into closed for just a quick moment.
Okay.
Thank you everyone who's attended.
I'm not needed there, right?
Correct.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, should we
Good
go
night.
back to the link from earlier tonight for closed session?
I don't know if it'll still work. Let me see. Give me 1 second.
Well, can't you just kick everybody off?
Apparently not.
I need to have control of the Zoom.
You can use a more delicate.
Please.
You can use a more delicate term than kick everybody off.
It's 9:40.
Do we want or need Ned and Chris?
No, thank
No.
you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, and Chris.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Oh, we're also still recording.
Oh.
I'll send out a Zoom. Give me 2 minutes. Once the meeting ends, which I thought it's over. So I don't.
Oh, you can't stop the recording?
I can stop the recording, but there's still attendees there.
Oh, there are.
We're not in close yet, anyone.
Okay.
So maybe we have to go to a different link.
Hold on. I can remove I just want to take note of the time. Hold on.
Nothing personal.
No, it's all good.
9:40.
I'm
Matt.
to the people.
Let's just stay here. I'll just take 2 seconds. If you guys are paying attention, and you could just
It's going down. Oh, well. Is it?
I guess we put some people to sleep.